So Monica McNutt, man, she felt like everything was adjudicated perfectly last night when it came to the Indiana Fever and Suns game, man. And y'all won't believe what
Ohio State. Then you got Marina Mabrey, who is a little bit of an enforcer in the league. I use that air quotes around that term, but she's someone who is a high level of competitor. And then you've got Lexi Held as well, going to the rescue of her teammate in Caitlin Clark. So to me, you know me, I tend to lean on the emotions of competition, adjudicated fair.
The WNBA is neck deep in controversy again, this time not just on the court, but spilling into the ESPN broadcast booth. Analyst Monica McNutt sparked major backlash with what many are calling one of the most out-of-touch and blatantly biased defenses of on-court aggression we've seen in years. Her comments didn't just miss the mark, they completely ignored it, sounding more like a spin job than serious analysis. Fans aren't just upset, they're furious, and rightfully so. Here's what went down.
Caitlin Clark and the Fever hosting the Sun. Now, it's gotten chippy between these teams before, and last night it really did. First off, here's just some Caitlin being Caitlin and knocking down threes.
She's been great since she's been back after that injury. Saturday, they knocked off the Liberty in the Commissioner's Cup, and she's picking up where she left off. Obviously, you know how lethal she is from behind the three-point line.
3 threes in the first half for Caitlin, 12 points. Then here's where it starts to get chippy. Tell us what we see here. Fever up by 10. Clark is backing down J.C. Sheldon. We got a foul. She's going to get hit in the face right around here. She doesn't like it. Now we got shoving. Now we got Marina Mabrey knocking her to the ground. What happened?
While Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White was passionately calling out the league's officiating following Tuesday night's wild 88-71 win over the Connecticut Sun, ESPN's Monica McNutt was simultaneously defending the exact kind of behavior that's turning women's basketball into open season on its brightest star. Instead of demanding accountability, McNutt doubled down, appearing to excuse the physicality that's made Caitlin Clark a nightly punching bag.
Gonna win. What's crazy is this incident with Caitlin Clark that happened. So during the game, this is what started the whole. I think it has started before this. They were playing scrappy the whole game. This team's very scrappy. It didn't really change much since Stephanie White left. You know, the new coach is doing the same shit as far as like scrappy physicality. This happened with Cece. So she got hit in the face, as you can see. She hit the shit out of her face. Like she damn near punched the girl, bumped into her. And then Marina, like, this is crazy, bro. And nobody got each.
What unfolded during the Fever Sun matchup wasn't just another intense night of basketball. It was a textbook example of how biased officiating, unchecked aggression, and shameless media spin can collide to form a crisis that shakes the league's credibility. It exposed a dangerous trend that doesn't just put players like Caitlin Clark at risk, it threatens to unravel the very integrity and progress the WNBA claims to stand for.
Now, the guy brought up, she was poked in the eye, hit it in the face. But Monica absolutely ignores that, right? And has nothing negative to say about Marina Mabrey shoving Caitlin Clark over. Says it's a part of competition. What is competitive about that? What is competitive about somebody blindsiding somebody and shoving?
The spark that ignited this latest firestorm seemed harmless at first. Just Caitlin Clark setting up near the top of the key, closely shadowed by Connecticut's J.C. Sheldon in the third quarter. But what followed wasn't just routine defense. It was a deliberate escalation that peeled back the curtain on a troubling pattern. Once again, the league's brightest star was singled out and subjected to unnecessary aggression. Yet officials and commentators alike turned a blind eye, exposing a disturbing double standard.
You got one player, one valuable asset. You have one star that you should be protecting at all cost. And how does the WNBA treat her? They constantly attack her, they poke her in the eye.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. Sheldon, in what officials later called unnecessary contact, involving a wind-up and impact, intentionally jabbed Caitlin Clark directly in the eye. The hit wasn't subtle. It was so blatant that even the most casual fans could see it cross the line from tough defense into outright dirty play. Clark's reaction was instinctive and justified. She clutched her face in pain, clearly stunned, and when Sheldon continued pressing physically, Clark instinctively pushed back in self-defense. It wasn't retaliation, it was survival. Yet somehow, the narrative quickly shifted away from the actual foul and toward blaming the victim. A troubling and all too familiar pattern.
Sheldon actually after poking Caitlyn in the eye, she walks up to her and like bumps her chest on Caitlyn, which is why Caitlyn shoved Sheldon off of her, right? That's why she shoved her off, because she's sitting here bumping her chest after poking her in the eye. Sheldon in the wrong the entire time right here, and Caitlyn getting her off of her, and then here come Marina Mabrey shoving her. Why? Because your teammate is...
This incident marked a turning point, transforming a routine basketball clash into a clear example of how the WNBA's systemic issues have fostered an environment where targeting star players has become normalized. Marina Mabrey, who had no legitimate reason to involve herself, approached Clark from behind and delivered a blatant blindside body check that knocked the league's face to the floor. The crowd's reaction was immediate, raw, and intense. They instinctively recognized they had witnessed something that crossed every line of acceptable play. The sustained boos weren't just emotional outbursts, they were a collective call for justice. It was a moment that exposed deeper problems within the league, where star players are vulnerable to reckless targeting, and the culture of accountability often feels absent. The booing was a visceral demand for fairness and respect, a clear sign that the status quo can no longer be ignored.
So it's really people out here defending Marina Mabrey for Madden hit sticking Caitlin Clark to the floor, saying that she's just protecting her teammate. For one, it involved Caitlin Clark and JC Sheldon. They had their little spiel before that. And then JC Sheldon scratches Clark in the face, then invades her space after that. Clark pushes her away because of that. And then Marina Mabrey comes get involved and Madden hit sticks her to the floor, man. And y'all just like she was protecting.
After a review that dragged on longer than a Supreme Court deliberation, the officials handed down decisions that defied logic, precedent, and basic common sense. Sheldon was assessed a flagrant foul for the eye poke, appropriate given the deliberate nature of the contact. However, what followed sparked a firestorm of controversy far beyond Indianapolis. Caitlin Clark, who was both eye-poked and blindsided with a body check, was penalized with a technical foul. Let that sink in. The player assaulted twice in seconds was penalized for her unsportsmanlike reaction to being attacked. According to crew chief Ashley Gloss, Clark reacted in an unsportsmanlike manner towards Sheldon after the eye poke. The decision seemed to punish her for defending herself, raising serious questions about fairness and the league's handling of player safety and conduct. The controversy only intensified as fans and analysts questioned the integrity of the call.
I'm starting to wonder if some of this drama with Caitlin Clark is being manufactured. Just to be clear, I'm not saying Caitlin Clark is manufacturing the drama. Obviously, she doesn't need to rely on gimmicks to generate mainstream attention. But the rest of the pretend basketball players in the WNBA, the only way they can generate interest, the only way they can see their name in the headlines is by attacking Caitlin Clark. And I'm starting to wonder if it's...
Even more shocking was the treatment of Marina Mabrey, whose actions were so blatantly flagrant that even casual fans expected an immediate ejection. Instead, Mabrey was only given a technical foul and allowed to stay in the game. Despite delivering what resembled a football-style body check on an unsuspecting opponent, officials concluded that the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of an ejection, and did not meet the criteria for a flagrant foul penalty too. The message was unmistakable. Serious fouls in legitimate basketball plays warranted ejections, but targeted assaults on star players were met with only a technical foul. This effectively created a two-tiered system of justice, where protecting leads was prioritized over ensuring player safety and fairness. The league's inconsistent calls sent a troubling message about the value placed on star power versus player well-being.
Injury. Question: what went into deciding Marina should get a technical instead of something more severe like an ejection? She said the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of ejection. How the fuck does that not rise to a level of ejection? Can someone explain that to me? I think even in the NBA that might have been an ejection. I think both of them would have got ejected. She said additionally it did not meet the criteria for flagrant one foul penalty too. So what does? Right? Question: why did Caitlin Clark get a technical foul? After the foul by Sheldon, Clark reached in an unsportsmanlike manner towards Sheldon. What type of sense? Yo, she got hit in the eye. It did, and in one angle, it looks like she got damn near punched. And then she trying to get up, she trying to get the girl off her. The girl attacks at her, and then Marina comes and knocks her down. That's crazy.
While the officials fell woefully short in their duty to protect players, Sophie Cunningham stepped up to fill that void. With less than a minute remaining and the Fever comfortably leading 87-70, Sheldon stole the ball and headed toward what should have been an easy transition layup. Having witnessed her teammates' earlier targeting go unpunished, Cunningham made a decision that would lead to her ejection, but send a powerful message across the league. Instead of letting an uncontested basket stand in a game already well in hand, Cunningham made a hard, decisive move to stop Sheldon, earning what officials called a flagrant 2 foul. The contact was forceful, perhaps overly aggressive given the game situation, but it reflected the frustration and lack of control that had been allowed to fester. Cunningham's action underscored the failure of referees to enforce discipline and maintain order, ultimately forcing players to police themselves in a game that had already descended into chaos.
But then Sophie Cunningham is getting called vile and disgusting for dropping J.C. Sheldon to the floor and dragging her by the hair. So Sophie Cunningham can't stick up for her teammate, or else it's vile and disgusting. But Marina Mabrey could get involved in something that didn't involve her, and it's just she was protecting her teammate. The Caitlin Clark hate is...
Cunningham's actions received quick praise from fans who understood her intent. The stark contrast in how officials handled these two incidents within the same game highlighted a glaring inconsistency that exposed deeper issues within WNBA officiating. Cunningham's hard but legal foul, executed within the flow of play, led to her immediate ejection once the situation escalated. In stark contrast, Mabrey's blatant, dangerous blindside attack on an unsuspecting opponent was met with only a technical foul. Cunningham showed no remorse afterward, posting a social media photo that many interpreted as a defiant message to critics and officials alike. Her stance made it clear: when the league fails to protect its players, teammates will step up to fill that void. While fans, players, and coaches expressed rightful outrage over the inconsistent officiating, ESPN analyst Monica McNutt defended the incident with a tone that many found biased and tone-deaf, further highlighting the league's ongoing struggles with officiating and fairness.
But you know what? The greatest thing I saw tonight was Sophie Cunningham. Thank you, Sophie Cunningham. She's about to give her the Stone Cold Stunner, bro. I'm gonna put it right here, bro. She was gripping J.C. Sheldon and straight bumped her. She was straight grabbing her hair and was talking shit while doing it. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you become a teammate. That's a road dog. That's a real teammate, bro. She see. What made me mad the play before, Howard, none of them jokers didn't stick up for Caitlin Clark. But that's how you stick up for Caitlin Clark. That's how you fight for your teammates. That's how
On ESPN, McNutt delivered comments that revealed either a complete misunderstanding of what had occurred or a deliberate attempt to minimize violence against the league's biggest star. "I'm okay with it," McNutt declared when discussing how Mabrey's shove on Clark was handled. This wasn't a nuanced take, acknowledging the complexity of competitive sports. This was a blanket endorsement of behavior that crossed every line of acceptable competition. McNutt's justification relied on the tired narrative of history between players, as if previous competitive matchups somehow justified current violence. "I think you've got to look at the history, right? There's history there," she explained, apparently suggesting that past competitive games create some sort of license for current targeting.
I do. Was what we saw last night beyond the pale, or was that just good, hard, competition?
I'm okay with it. I think, again, you got to look at the history, right? J.C. Sheldon and Caitlin Clark, the 1 and 5th draft picks of last year's draft. There's history there. I'm not saying necessarily history in terms of it being nasty, but there's just history in terms of them playing against one another for years, right? You get a little scrum here, each teammate comes to their other teammate's rescue. Marina Mabrey, like I said, is someone who does not back down from this sort of thing as well. I thought it was adjudicated fairly. Could we have done without it? Yes, but I, Greeny, continue to say competition is not always pretty.
The ESPN analyst then attempted to normalize the incident by characterizing teammates coming to their other teammates' rescue as acceptable behavior, This framing completely ignored the reality of what had occurred. Mabrey didn't come to anyone's rescue. She blindsided an unsuspecting opponent who was already the victim of an eye poke. Perhaps most revealing was McNutt's attempt to shift blame onto Clark herself, suggesting that the victim somehow deserved what happened because she's a trash talker too. This victim-blaming approach essentially argued that verbal competitiveness justifies physical violence, a standard that would make every trash-talking player in professional sports a legitimate target for assault. McNutt concluded her defense by stating, "I'm okay with competition. I didn't like the play by Sophie Cunningham." The irony was palpable. She defended actual violence against Clark while criticizing the player who stepped up to protect her teammate when the officials failed to do so.
And then I think the other part too, as Caitlin continues to matriculate through her WNBA career, if you have a mic on her in game, she's a trash talker too. And so I'm okay with competition. I didn't like the play by Sophie Cunningham. I thought the teammates coming to their respective teammate in the first little scrum was okay. I did not like the play by Sophie Cunningham.
Fam, what does trash talking have to do with putting hands on somebody? Trash talking is a part of the game, right? But you telling me just because she's an excellent trash talker and she likes to get under people's skin with her words, that gives you the right to put your hands on her during the game?
McNutt's comments didn't occur in a vacuum. They represent part of a broader pattern of media coverage that has consistently downplayed or justified the targeting of Caitlin Clark throughout her WNBA career. From the moment Clark entered the league, she has faced an unprecedented level of physical targeting that statistics have documented as being disproportionate compared to other players. The documented pattern shows that of the league's flagrant fouls, a disproportionate number have been committed against Clark, creating a narrative that certain media personalities seem determined to ignore or justify. Rather than acknowledging this concerning trend, commentators like McNutt have chosen to normalize it by suggesting it's simply part of competition. This media complicity becomes even more problematic when considering the business implications of allowing the league's biggest star and primary driver of fan interest to be targeted with impunity. When analysts defend violence against the player who has brought unprecedented attention and revenue to the WNBA, they're not just failing journalistically, they're undermining the very foundation of the league's recent growth.
NBA to turn into WWE? No, of course not. But I do think that the idea that competition does not allow for space for tempers to flare at times, that's ridiculous. We can look at this across any sport, right? Particularly when there are men. And if things get heated, we chalk it up to, oh, they were passionate. And it's nothing, right? It was not great. But to me, as I'm watching it, Caitlin Clark is an incredible competitor, as you heard her say post-game. She's doing plenty of talking with her game. And I will add to this particular game, the Connecticut Sun are struggling badly this year. And so there is probably a lack of patience with them and maybe not making all the smartest plays over the course of the game. But I don't know that I would have even had this conversation this morning, Molly. In fact, I saw this happen and flipped over to the much better game, which happened to be the Liberty and the Dream.
While ESPN analysts were busy defending the indefensible, Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White provided the kind of leadership the situation demanded. Her post-game press conference became a masterclass in controlled fury, disguised as professional commentary, delivering one of the most scathing indictments of WNBA officiating ever delivered by a head coach. White's words carried the authority of someone who had watched this pattern repeat itself game after game, week after week throughout the season. This wasn't the emotional outburst of a coach frustrated by a single bad call. This was the calculated response of a professional who had reached her breaking point with systemic incompetence. White's most devastating critique came when she addressed the evolving nature of the game and the officials' failure to evolve with it. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Then came the knockout punch. Everybody's getting better, except the officials. This wasn't just criticism. It was an indictment of a system that had failed to adapt to the modern game while players had become faster, stronger, and more skilled. The league's failure to protect Caitlin Clark while simultaneously punishing her for being targeted revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of both basketball and business.
The game has changed so much. players are faster, they're better, they're bigger, they're stronger. They're as good as they've ever been. They're as athletic as they've ever been. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Everybody's getting better, except the officials. So we got to find a way to remedy it. I mean, you've heard every coach talk about it, so I don't know what the answer is.
The stark contrast between the crowd's instinctive sense of justice and the officials' tone-deaf decisions underscored the disconnect between what fans expect and what the league actually delivers. Likewise, the disparity between McNutt's defensive physicality and the widespread fan outrage exposed how some media personalities have become completely detached from their audience's sentiments. Sophie Cunningham's willingness to step in as an enforcer when the system failed exemplified the kind of loyalty and protectiveness that should be celebrated, not condemned. Her action sent a powerful message. When the league refuses to safeguard its players, teammates will step up to fill that void. The Indiana Fever's advancement to the Commissioner's Cup Championship, where they will face the Minnesota Lynx for a $500,000 zero-cents prize pool, is a notable achievement. However, the true prize lies in a league that prioritizes player safety over manufactured drama, upholds competitive integrity over social media hype, and values honest media coverage over agenda-driven narratives. Until the WNBA addresses officiating issues and outlets like ESPN recognize their role in normalizing violence against star players, incidents like Tuesday night's chaos will continue to threaten the league's integrity and the values it claims to uphold. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribing. More videos are on the screen now.